Welcome back to my channel, designers, and this is lesson number 5 of the Design With Me series, where we are going to learn how to add color onto our sketches. So today I'm going to jump right into the demo part of the video. We're going to be learning about 2 ways to fill in your sketches with color, one technique using colored pencils and one technique using markers. Now, colored pencils, they are readily available in any supermarket or any art store. You can find colored pencils at all price ranges, so that's an easy way to go if you're just starting out. And then markers, I had shared a link on Prismacolor markers where you can buy them, basically on Amazon. I had shared the link on my Instagram, so you guys can check that out if you are interested in buying these markers. Or there are other markers available at Virgin Megastore, which are called Copic markers, so that's also an option that you can go for. So let's begin. The first method we're going to use is going to be using these markers. So if you remember our mood board and our color story, which I will put on the screen now, we had a variety of colors that I have matched now to my markers. We had blue shades, we had like a dusty blue, a turquoise, we also had a magenta, and then some peachy coral colors. So these are what I'm going to work with for filling in the sketches. Now, what I recommend is the original sketches that you had done, I would recommend that you keep those with you and instead you work on photocopies. So what I've done is I've taken my original sketch and I have photocopied it here. So that way, even if I mess up my coloring on one of them, I always have my original sketch in black and white that I can go back, recopy, and start over again. So I never color directly onto the original sketches. I always use photocopies for coloring. So for the demo using markers, I want to fill in this design right here. It's like an open abaya kaftan type thing with an underdress. So when I'm starting to color in the sketches, I am using all this white space as my workspace. So let's say I want to see what color I want to use. I'm going to use this white area as just a testing ground for me to get a feel of the colors, to get a feel of how the markers are flowing and how heavy they are. Like, this is quite a dark color, so I might not want to go with that. Maybe this one can be in a blue. So basically, I'm keeping this as a free workspace around the sketch. I don't mind that it looks a little bit messy or anything. It's not a problem for me because, again, these are working sketches. These are for us to understand better what we are going to work with. So I don't mind that it's a little bit messy. I actually think it looks cool. So I think I'm going to make this abaya in this like light blue lilac color. I think that'll be really nice. And the way I'm going to start is by using the bolder side of the marker. Okay, and I just follow the lines of the garment when I'm coloring in. I don't want to go in every which direction because that's just going to look messy, and actually, like with markers, you can see every little line that you make. So you want to keep all your lines when you're coloring in a single direction. So let's begin. So now that I've basically just put one wash of color over the body of the abaya, I want to go back and add a little bit of shading. And the way you do that with markers is just by layering the color over and over again. Especially with these Prismacolor markers, they are almost like watercolor, if you can see. So by making it darker, you just keep going over and over again. So I want to highlight the cut of the garment in the sketch, so I'm just kind of accentuating that line we have here. And then I'm adding a little bit of a shadow here and here. So I always choose a light source. So let's say the light is coming from here in this direction. So you'll have the shadows on this side of the garment. So next, I want to use a little bit of the gold that's in our mood board for this trim here. I'm just going to try and see if this color looks like gold. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to use the thinner tip of this marker because it's a smaller detail, and I'm going to just fill in this trim that I want to be gold in reality. So as you're filling in your sketches, you can kind of start to see what your shopping list is going to be like when you're going fabric shopping and when you are going to be looking for trims and embroidery materials. This is the time where you're going to actually work out all the colors of those materials. So you might not know the texture and the exact design of it, but you will at least know the colors that you are looking for. So for this area here, which is the borders that we liked from the mood board, I would like these to be embroidered. I'm not sure of the exact design of embroidery I'm going to do, but I'm actually going to use colored pencils to render this because it's a little bit more detailed. And I think it's going to be, again, a gold base of embroidery, but with some touches of pink. Because I like this combination that we have going on here, and it's very fresh and summery. So I'm just going to lightly fill that in with gold so that we know that the base is gold. So see how I'm mixing colored pencils and markers? That's also fine to do, especially because with the markers you can't always get the most detail, so you can of course mix media and use colored pencils and markers. I'm just again using the scribbling motions to kind of mimic the look of whatever the embroidery will be when we actually go to designing it and buying the materials. I know that I will be looking for peach colored beads and crystals, maybe some white touches, and then of course the gold. So this is actually like a white chalk pencil and it doesn't make much of a difference, but I'm just going in with it anyway. I actually like to use this to add highlight into the garment. So as we did shadowing with the marker here, you can also add some lightness in your sketches with a white, like chalk kind of crayon like this. So I chose for the inside dress this light pink color to bring out the accents found in the embroidery here. So I think that works quite well. We're almost done here. In my original sketch, I had some like flowers embroidered on the body like you see here. I had the same here. You can faintly see them through the marker. So I think I want to actually add those back. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use the white crayon. And I'm just going to scribble in a couple of flowers back. So I think these will be embroidered onto the fabric. I think that'll be really pretty. And then I'm going to use a gold marker, if I can find it. Yes, so this is a gold marker. You can again find in any stationaries. And I'm just going to dab a couple of dots into the flowers, and that will indicate a little bit of a touch of gold here. So I don't know if you can see, but in person it's a little bit shiny. And the last thing that's left is here you have a gap in the dress, and that is actually because you can see the inside of the garment. So I'm going to just quickly actually draw that in because it's not showing. So this would be the behind, the inside of the abaya actually that you can see through here, because this is her body and this is the back of the abaya showing through. I'm going to go back in with my marker and fill that in, and then I'll add a little bit more darkness using a gray color so that it moves to the back and it looks like the back of the garment. It doesn't look like part of the front anymore. And lastly, I'm just going to fill in the face and the legs and the hands. I like to add little earrings, always. And earrings and lips onto my mannequins. Yep. So I have now just finished coloring in the sketch using markers, and as a finishing touch I go in with a black pen, like a fine tip black pen, and I just outline a little bit of the details to make the sketch pop. So this is the finished sketch, and just using markers, I think the end result is really nice. It's very rich in color, and it almost does look like fabric and like it has some fluidity to it. And that is the appeal of markers. Although sometimes they can be harder to control and a little bit more messy, the end result is always more vibrant and more rich. And it actually does look like it's fabric, and it looks light, which is the effect I wanted to achieve. And then with small touches like the gold pen and the white pencil and then the black outlines just in a few places. If you notice, I didn't outline the whole thing. I only outlined key places that I wanted to highlight in the sketch to just bring it out a bit. And yeah, so I would consider this mainly a marker filling in technique, but I also used a few other things just to enhance it a little bit. So now the next technique I'm going to show you is colored pencils. So now I'll be demonstrating the technique of using colored pencils to fill in your illustrations. So now let's begin with technique number 2. So it's the same thing that we did with the markers. I matched my colored pencils as best as I could to the mood board that we have created and the color story in there. So we have the corals and pinks and a little bit of magenta, and then we have the more deeper blues and turquoises. So this is what we have to work with, and let's see what we're going to use for this kaftan. I'm going to fill in this closed kaftan with color, and let's see. So when you're deciding on which colors to use for your items, think about the occasion that you're designing for. So I'm designing for Spring-Summer 2020. The Spring-Summer collection I usually launch around Ramadan time, so I'm thinking that it could be a little bit festive and girly. So I'm not going to be afraid of using color. If you saw in the marker demonstration, that was quite a colorful kaftan, and it might be really nice for Eid or Ramadan. So think about the occasion. If you're doing something for more daily wear, you might have wanted to choose a more neutral color story. But because this is spring summer, I can go ahead and play with color and do more crazy combinations in each outfit. So I think for this one, I'm going to go with this coral shade. I really like it, and I think in a closed kaftan with this much heavy embroidery, to have a light colored base would be really nice and feminine, and then you have the more structured masculine embroidery. It's almost like armor here, which will actually be filled with embroidery here. So yeah, I'm going to go with this coral color. When I color using colored pencils, I usually, when I'm filling in larger areas, I hold the pencil kind of down towards the paper, and I use the wider end of the colored pencil to fill it in, and that I feel gives a more even distribution of color. So I recommend for people who are just beginning that they start with colored pencils, and the reason for this is because colored pencils are so much easier to control than markers. I mean, I can literally go back and erase something if I make a mistake with colored pencils. Whereas with markers, things can get a little bit messy, and if you do mess up, you have to basically start over. But with colored pencils, things are more in your control. You can press harder or lighter to get the shade that you want, and things tend to stay in the lines a little bit more easily. So I do recommend for beginners to try the colored pencil technique first. And then, of course, you can go on to adding markers and eventually even paint, like watercolor and things like that. Those are really effective as well. So again, with the idea of adding shadows and a little bit of dimension to your sketching, now I'm using the colored pencil like you would normally hold a pencil, and I am pressing a little bit harder and I am filling in where I want there to be a little bit more depth and dimension. So one way to make your dress look like it's actually flowing and the fabric is soft is near the hem. You can just kind of draw straight lines going up towards the body, and that'll give the effect of rippling or moving fabric. So that's one way to like strategically shade so that your garment looks more fluid and soft, especially with colored pencils. So for this border area, because I'm going to do embroidery, I'm just going to use a gold pencil and just roughly fill it in so that I know that that's going to be gold embroidery. If you notice, I'm not filling it in completely, and that's for a reason. Because it's embroidery, I don't want to make it a solid color like I did the fabric. I want to keep some like white spaces to show that there is multiple elements in there. So maybe I can bring in a little bit of that magenta color into the embroidery here. Imagine magenta crystals in there or beads to go with the gold embroidery. That'll look so nice with this, especially with the pink of the dress. So I'm just adding little confetti-like things just to represent the crystals. And why not a little bit of turquoise to bring in those other colors. So again, right now we aren't focusing on what the embroidery is actually going to look like, although from the mood board we know that most likely it will be a floral embroidery. So for now we're just putting in an idea of colors and what it'll look like, and then we will go on later to design the embroidery in another lesson. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of a close-up of what I did here. And I think for this one, that's about it. I'm just going to go ahead and fill in the skin and the hair. So now that the colored part is done, I'm just going to go back with a black pen like we did in the marker demonstration and just highlight the areas that I want to bring out a little bit. And this is the finished result of using colored pencils and black pen to fill in your sketch. So now I'm going to continue coloring all the rest of the sketches in using a combination of markers and colored pencils, and I will share the end result. So finally, about 45 minutes of coloring later and a whole bunch of mess, I have filled in all of the sketches for the collection. I think I ended up getting a good range of colors in. So we have some brights, like the blues and turquoise play, and then we have some nice pinks, and the magenta I love, and this lilac one I love a lot as well. And then I included a little bit more lighter neutral colored ones here. So I think we have a good balance of colors and outfits. And now we kind of have a shopping list of colors and fabric colors that we would want to go for in the next steps that are coming up soon. And yeah, so this is what the collection is looking like. That's the coloring phase. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned some cool techniques, and it's time to get creative. So just enjoy and put some Netflix on. That's what I was doing here. And I was coloring and having a good time. So yeah, go ahead and enjoy. See you guys next time. Bye.